Breaking news in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee, minutes ago, literally, releasing emails that they say were written by Jeffrey Epstein that explicitly, specifically mention Donald Trump by name and in context that we really haven't heard before.
Donald Trump is absolutely collapsing right now as 10,000 pages of his Deutsche Bank records just exploded online.
Emails that show Jeffrey Epstein mentioning Donald Trump by name multiple times and private correspondence that he had with people including Ghislaine Maxwell, obviously his longtime associate and accomplice, and also the author Michael Wolff in a time span of about the last 15 years or so in these emails. Now, these are coming out from the House Oversight Committee. They had issued a bipartisan subpoena to Jeffrey Epstein's estate, John, as you know, earlier this year,
exposing $2.5 billion in suspicious loans that the bank's own compliance department flagged as money laundering risks tied to Russian oligarch mirror trades and Epstein private jet flights. The House Oversight Committee finally released the Deutsche Bank documents they've been fighting to obtain since 2019. These records have been subpoenaed, litigated, appealed, and blocked for 7 years. And now they're public, and they prove everything his critics always suspected. The documents show Russian mirror trades flowing through Trump Organization accounts. They show Kushner family transactions flagged as suspicious. They show loans approved despite internal high-risk alerts that should have stopped them. And here's what makes this absolutely devastating. The documents also confirm Trump flew on Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express at least 7 times between 1993 and 1997, directly contradicting his repeated claims that he barely knew Epstein and never flew on his plane. These aren't allegations from political opponents. These are findings from the bank's own compliance department documented in official internal reports. The bank knew Trump's money was dirty. They flagged it. They documented it. And then they processed the transactions anyway, because Trump was a valuable client who brought in business. But real quick, before we get into this, let's be honest. You can't really trust mainstream media anymore. That's why we built Patrick Smith's show, to bring you real stories, real context, and no corporate spin. If you want to stay ahead of the headlines, please subscribe, because you might think you are, but aren't. Your subscription actually matters here. All right, let's get into what actually happened and why this document dump is absolutely devastating. The specific Deutsche Bank internal documents are damning beyond anything that had previously leaked or been alleged. The bank's own suspicious activity reports from 2016 and 2017 flagged Trump and Kushner transactions as potentially linked to Russian money laundering schemes. Deutsche Bank compliance officers identified patterns consistent with Russian mirror trades. That's a technique where identical trades are made simultaneously in different currencies to move money across borders without detection. Think about what that means. These aren't allegations. These are findings from the bank's own compliance department. The bank knew his money was dirty. They flagged it, they documented it, and then they processed the transactions anyway. Share this video with everyone you know because Deutsche Bank made the decision to ignore its own compliance warnings and enable what appears to be money laundering at massive scale. The documents cover Trump's borrowing relationship with Deutsche Bank spanning decades, totaling approximately $2.5 billion in loans. This includes the $175 million loan for the old post office hotel in Washington, D.C., the property that became a symbol of his conflicts of interest during his first term. It includes the $106 million loan for Doral, the Miami golf resort where he wanted to host the G7 summit. And it includes hundreds of millions more in loans for various Trump Organization projects. What the documents reveal is that these loans were approved despite the bank's own compliance department raising serious red flags about where Trump's money was coming from. These suspicious activity reports, SARs, that Deutsche Bank filed internally are the smoking guns in this document dump. Banks are required to file SARs when they detect transactions that may involve money laundering, fraud, or other financial crimes. Deutsche Bank's compliance officers filed multiple SARs related to Trump and Kushner transactions, identifying patterns that suggested Russian money laundering. The specific technique identified was mirror trading. a scheme where identical securities are bought and sold simultaneously in different currencies in different countries. Russian oligarchs used mirror trades extensively to move money out of Russia in violation of currency controls. And here's the devastating part. The SARs indicate that Trump Organization accounts showed patterns consistent with receiving the proceeds of these mirror trades. In other words, Deutsche Bank's own compliance staff concluded that Trump may have been receiving laundered Russian money. Make sure you're subscribed to Patrick Smith Show, because the fact that Deutsche Bank continued lending to Trump despite these SRs raises serious questions about the bank's culpability. Under normal circumstances, a bank that identifies potential money laundering is supposed to file reports with regulators and cease the suspicious activity. Deutsche Bank filed the internal reports but continued processing transactions and extending credit to Trump. The bank has previously paid billions of dollars in fines for money laundering violations, including a $630 million fine specifically related to Russian mirror trades. The Trump transactions appear to be part of that same pattern of enabling Russian money laundering. Deutsche Bank chose profits over compliance, and Trump was one of the beneficiaries. The $350 million that Trump owed Deutsche Bank at the start of his second term takes on new significance in light of these revelations. He entered office owing hundreds of millions to a bank that knew his money was dirty. That creates leverage. He needed to stay in Deutsche Bank's good graces to avoid having loans called or being cut off from future credit. Think about what that means. Did his policy decisions favor Deutsche Bank or its other clients? Did his refusal to release tax returns stem from fear of exposing these connections? Did foreign actors who knew about the dirty money use that knowledge as leverage? These questions have been asked for years, and now we have documentary evidence that supports the worst interpretations. The Epstein flight logs that appear in these documents are absolutely explosive. They directly contradict Trump's repeated public denials. He has said for years that he barely knew Epstein, that they had a falling out years before Epstein's crimes became public, and that he never flew on Epstein's plane. The documents show 7 flights between 1993 and 1997. 7 flights is not casual acquaintance. 7 flights is not barely knew him. 7 flights means he was a regular on Epstein's jet during the years when Epstein was actively trafficking underage girls. We don't know from these documents whether he participated in any of Epstein's crimes, but we know he lied about the extent of their relationship. And given everything else we've learned about his willingness to lie, the question of what happened on those flights demands investigation. And here's where it gets even more devastating. The documents also reference Brett Ratner's deposition claiming that Melania met Trump via Jeffrey Epstein. This confirms what Hunter Biden alleged and what Melania has been desperately trying to suppress by filing lawsuits. The Trump-Epstein relationship wasn't casual acquaintance. It was deep and ongoing over years, involving multiple flights on Epstein's plane and potentially the introduction that led to Trump's marriage. Melania has maintained for years that she met Trump at a Fashion Week party through legitimate modeling industry connections. The Ratner deposition from Brett Ratner, the Hollywood director, says she met Trump through Epstein. Combined with other evidence from the Epstein files and Hunter Biden's allegations, the evidence now strongly suggests that Melania's official story about meeting Trump is false. The First Lady apparently met her husband through Jeffrey Epstein's network. Make sure you stay subscribed, because the timing of specific loans relative to other documented events raises additional red flags. The $106 million Doral loan was processed the same week as certain county records that investigators have flagged as suspicious. The documents don't fully explain what those county records contain, but the temporal connection suggests coordination between loan disbursements and other transactions. Forensic accountants will spend years analyzing these 10,000 pages to identify patterns and connections. But even the initial review makes clear that Trump's finances were a web of suspicious transactions that any competent compliance department should have stopped. Rosemary Vrablic, the Deutsche Bank private banker who handled Trump's accounts, appears prominently in these documents. Vrablic approved loans to Trump that other banks had rejected. Vrablic processed transactions that compliance had flagged. Vrablic left Deutsche Bank in 2021 under circumstances that were never fully explained. The documents suggest that Vrablic may have been operating outside normal bank protocols to service Trump's accounts. Whether she did so on her own initiative, at the direction of bank leadership, or at the request of parties outside the bank is unclear. But the documents make clear that his banking relationship was unusual and that normal compliance safeguards were bypassed. Share this video with your friends because the House Oversight Committee Chair's characterization of this as emoluments on steroids captures the constitutional dimension of these revelations. The emoluments clause of the Constitution prohibits the president from receiving payments from foreign governments. If Trump was receiving laundered Russian money through Deutsche Bank transactions, that potentially constitutes emoluments violations of massive scale. The corruption wasn't just ethical violations, it may have been constitutional violations that made his entire presidency illegitimate. This adds to the already overwhelming case for impeachment and conviction, and it provides grounds for potential criminal prosecution beyond the other charges he's facing. Now let me walk you through what the full picture looks like when you put all these revelations together. Everything Trump ever claimed about being a successful businessman was a lie. He wasn't successful. He was useful to people who needed to move dirty money. The entire Trump financial empire, the brand he's traded on his whole life, was built on money laundering and funded by Russian oligarchs and connected to the most notorious sex trafficker in history. Deutsche Bank's own compliance department flagged the transactions, documented the risks, and then processed them anyway. That's not a banking relationship, that's a criminal conspiracy, and now we have 10,000 pages of documents proving it. The Epstein connection revealed in these documents adds another layer of devastation. 7 flights on the Lolita Express. Brett Ratner testifying under oath that Melania met Trump through Epstein. The document showing that the relationship between Trump and Epstein was far deeper than Trump ever admitted. This isn't about defending Epstein or minimizing his crimes. This is about exposing the lies Trump told for years about barely knowing him. 7 flights is not barely knowing someone. 7 flights during the years Epstein was trafficking girls raises serious questions about what Trump knew and when he knew it, and why he lied about it for so long. Make sure you're subscribed to J. Patrick Smith Show, because the political implications of this document dump are massive. Democrats are already using this as ammunition, running ads highlighting the Russian money laundering, the Epstein flights, the lies about his finances, and Republicans in swing districts are panicking. They're looking at these documents, looking at the bank's own compliance reports flagging Trump's transactions as suspicious, and they're calculating whether defending him is worth losing their seats. The approval ratings were already bad, but now, with documentary proof that his entire business empire was built on dirty money, the numbers are going to get even worse. The $2.5 billion in suspicious loans takes on new meaning when you understand the scale of what Deutsche Bank was doing. This wasn't just one bad loan. This wasn't just one questionable transaction. This was a decades-long relationship where the bank systematically ignored its own compliance warnings to service a client they knew was dealing in dirty money. The bank has already paid $630 million in fines for Russian mirror trades. The Trump transactions appear to be part of that same scheme, which means Deutsche Bank didn't just enable Trump's money laundering. They enabled it as part of a broader pattern of helping Russian oligarchs move money illegally. The documents also show that Jared Kushner's transactions were flagged as suspicious. This isn't just about Trump. This is about the entire family operation. Kushner was getting loans that compliance officers questioned. Kushner was part of the same pattern of suspicious transactions tied to Russian money. The entire Trump-Kushner financial empire appears to have been built on the same foundation of laundered money from Russian sources, and Deutsche Bank knew it, documented it, and kept lending anyway. Now here's what this means for Trump's legal exposure going forward. The war crimes charges were already serious. The obstruction charges were mounting. But now add money laundering to the list. Add emoluments violations. Add potential RICO charges for running a criminal enterprise. The legal jeopardy just expanded dramatically. And here's the thing that makes it even worse for Trump. These aren't allegations that require investigation. These are the bank's own internal documents. Compliance reports filed by bank employees whose job was to identify money laundering. SARs that specifically flagged Trump's transactions as suspicious. This is documentary evidence that will be devastating in any criminal trial. The irony is that Trump spent his entire career projecting an image of wealth and success, the billionaire businessman, the great deal maker, the winner, and now we learn that his wealth came from laundered Russian money, that his success was built on a bank that knew his transactions were dirty, but processed them anyway because he was profitable, that the dealmaker was actually just a front for Russian oligarchs looking to move money out of their country. Everything Trump claimed to be was a lie, and now 10,000 pages of bank documents prove it. So what happens next? These documents are public now. Forensic accountants are going through them. Journalists are analyzing them. Prosecutors are reviewing them. And the evidence of money laundering is right there in black and white. Deutsche Bank's own compliance officers concluded Trump was receiving laundered Russian money. That's not speculation. That's what the bank's own experts determined. And now that determination is public record. Trump can't spin this, can't claim it's fake news, can't attack the source. These are his own bank's internal documents, and they destroy his entire narrative about being a legitimate businessman. The Epstein revelations add to the devastation. 7 flights on the Lolita Express during the years Epstein was trafficking girls. Melania meeting Trump through Epstein according to sworn testimony. The deep ongoing relationship that Trump lied about for years. All of it documented in these newly released files. All of it contradicting Trump's public statements. All of it raising questions about what he knew and when he knew it, and why he lied. The bottom line is this: Trump's corruption has been exposed. The Deutsche Bank records prove his finances were flagged as money laundering risks. The Epstein documents prove he lied about the extent of that relationship. The compliance reports prove the bank knew his money was dirty and processed it anyway. Everything Trump ever claimed about his business success was built on a foundation of lies. And now the documentary evidence is public. The truth is out, and Trump will never recover from it. This story continues. Stay tuned.